Starting in the early 80s, there was a small group of people, actually I think about a dozen of us, that were taking care of baby birds, basically. The numbers started increasing, more and more and more and more. And the reality is our resources couldn't support the work that we were doing. And the only way that we were going to be able to ask for financial assistance, donations, was to incorporate with nonprofit status. And it sort of blossomed from there. We started looking for a site. More and more animals kept coming in. Our homes were filled. And Network is a perfect name at that point in time because we literally were a network of people scattered over all of Santa Barbara County, all the way up through Santa Maria. We had a seabird facility, a small location already in existence. We had to move from that location. It was on rental property. June Taylor stepped up to the plate, offered her home, her backyard, converted it into ponds, her shed into indoor housing for critical care birds, and she was available 7 days a week, 24/7, 4 years.
Well, I did it because there was no other place for the seabirds to go and be cared for, so someone had to do it, and I was the one. It says Animal Rescue Group of volunteer June Taylor feeds pelican found dehydrated, starving to death. Bird's adventure began months ago. So here we are at the pond, and feeding two little hungry pelicans. They eat a lot. So at one time I had 30 or more pelicans here at one time. I'm excited now.
Once spring rolls around, it starts slow and then it kind of just all comes suddenly where we have, a few baby birds and then suddenly, there's 20, 40, 80. And so we'll have 80 baby birds, on top of mammals and everything. So it's all very sudden and very intense. Every baby bird gets fed every half hour, typically. In the beginning, it's possible to manage going through feeding all of them. And then at a certain point, it gets to where you can't feed all of them in half an hour because there's too many that by the time you get halfway through, it's already time to feed the first ones again. And so that's the time when we start really needing help.
At the height of the season, we can take in as many as 60 animals in a single day. So it's very intense that time of year. We take care of approximately 3,500 animals a year here. The vast majority are birds. In the winter months, we do get birds who migrate in. A lot of them are pelagic. Basically, pelagic means that they don't come on land unless there's something wrong. These types of birds are very challenging to care for. A lot of them are oiled as well, and the washing of these birds is something that's very dangerous for the birds, so it has to be done under very controlled circumstances with very specialized equipment. These birds require very special pools with pristine water all the time. We do intake these birds and stabilize them and care for them, and we depend on transporters like Jay Van Meter to take these birds once a week to International Bird Rescue.
Because we don't have the facility that we need, we have to transport animals to different facilities for advanced veterinary care, advanced rehabilitation, and that's what I do. We do this every Tuesday. We call it the Tuesday Bird Run. Sometimes I go all the way to the International Bird Rescue Center in Long Beach. Well, I'm involved because I love animals, and I think wildlife is very important to the community, not just ours, but everybody's community. A huge percentage of animals that we care for have been hurt, either indirectly or directly, by something that human beings have done to them. And I think it's really important that human beings reverse that and do what they can to care for the animals. And so it's a really cool thing, I think, to see an animal that was hurt by humans, that is rehabilitated by humans, and eventually put back into its natural habitat.
The facility that we currently have at 1460 is amazing. It's a huge leap forward from our beginnings. but it's still missing a few pieces. And those are big pieces. We have yet to put in our full animal hospital structure. We are operating out of smaller buildings, which makes it fragmented and more difficult. We also do not have the capacity to care if we were to have another oil spill. We can do triage, which we did to the last one, but then the animals are transported elsewhere. I think in this community it's extremely important that we have the capability to manage a full-scale spill right here in Santa Barbara. And to do that, we need to go forward and complete the project that was originally planned.
When Julia called and said, "You got to get to the center," I just made it through, and through the roadblocks, I just used my, kind of like, I can't let them, perish because they're wildlife and they're trapped and they can't get out on their own. So when I went through the roadblocks, then I knew I was going to be on my own because they were telling me you're on your own. Just a big plume of smoke just crossed the road and I lost my visibility, and then it cleared up and I was 5 feet from a utility pole, and so I met up with it. But I was able to still drive the truck down to the center, and as is.
I didn't really grasp the severity of what was happening until right when we got onto Fairview from Cathedral Oaks, because right when we were coming up that hill there was this huge eucalyptus tree that used to be there, and it was completely on fire, and it was illuminating all of the road, and there was just this tiny fireman underneath it hitting it with a hose.
And so I just kept walking all the way around the facility, saturating what I could saturate in case it never did fly, so that it didn't, start a small fire again.
So the fireman gave us about 10 minutes once we arrived here, so I burst into the baby bird room. We managed to get all 100 birds that were in the room loaded and packed into people's cars, and then I turned around and noticed the incubator and that it was going to be too heavy for me alone to lift, and I thought about how devastating it would be to leave those babies behind me. Next thing I knew, my boyfriend Ben was able to lift the incubator, and so I compiled all the babies and I put them in boxes so they wouldn't tip over, and we were able to pack the incubator into someone's car, and that meant that not only are these babies going to survive, but now anything that we also get in after this is going to be able to survive. After we evacuated the animals to the Humane Society where they were going to be housed, it was really heartwarming to see how all of my fellow staff members and volunteers had come in the middle of the night, ready to take on all these animals and care for them.
Well, I've always have had a feeling for all animals, domestic and wildlife, but when anything is in distress, I'd always try to accommodate it by getting it out of harm's way and getting it out of its predicament that it's in right now.
It's really fulfilling to be able to get in something as a baby with no feathers, eyes closed, something that would die within an hour if it weren't brought to us, and then be able to personally feed it, take care of it, keep it warm, make sure that it has everything it needs at every stage of its life up until it can be released. And to watch that process is really beautiful.
We bring in so many animals that have been attacked by a cat or a fish hook or, eat rat poison. Humans and wildlife need to coexist. And it's up to us in the community to take care of our wild animals. We have a responsibility to these beautiful creatures that live among us.
Well, what I've seen in my 30 years with the network is the increased need for a place for our community, the residents of our community, to take injured and orphaned wildlife. The numbers have increased over the years. We've moved from one place to another as the numbers got larger. We are now at our facility at 1460 North Fairview, and it's open 365 days a year.
part of what makes Santa Barbara so special is that we have a thriving environment, that we have natural and beautiful open spaces. And our work to protect the birds and the mammals that are living in our open spaces and in our backyards is what makes Santa Barbara such a beautiful place to live. People can help create their connection to nature. People can help actively take care of the creatures in their backyard.
Even if we are, urbanizing and creating a less preferable environment for the animals, we can at least help the animals that are here.
The joy, the pleasure is far greater. The rewards are far greater than the work. And it is hard work. It's physically demanding at times. It's certainly emotionally demanding. It's heartbreaking. And it's joyful. And it's that joy to see something be free again. It's very special. And so I think anyone who does what we do and what the current volunteers do and the staff do at the center have to feel, obviously, passion for what they're doing, but they have to be driven to know, and they have felt the joy of their accomplishments. It's intoxicating. You want to do it again and again because it's uplifting. Mankind has done so much damage, and it's so wonderful to be able to mitigate some of that damage and to see things be free again. That's got to be the reason. I mean, you wouldn't do it for any other reason. You'd be crazy.